In progress. Hello, everyone. Welcome to evening number 4, where we speak about Bodhicitta. I need this to be a little bit higher. No, just take this one cushion. Yeah. So we're talking about Bodhicitta, and Bodhicitta is really a mind, the mind most praised by all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So it can be very inspirational to listen at it, and at the same time we can look into our own mind and see why it is so difficult for us to develop that mind of bodhicitta. So last week we made a start in talking about bodhicitta, and so far we have spoken about how we can create a healthy basis or a healthy foundation in our own mind that is suitable for us to develop bodhicitta. And so then we spoke about the path that we have in common with those of small capacity and those of medium capacity, right? So we first spoke about that in order to engage in any way on the spiritual path, we need to appreciate the human rebirth that we have, and not just the human rebirth that we have, but the perfect human rebirth that we have, having a healthy body, having met the teachings, having some faith in the teachings, having met teachers. These are all very important to look into that. And then we realize that this precious human rebirth that we have, it's not gonna last forever. One day it's gonna end. One day we're gonna die. And so when we're gonna die, then basically what is going to happen after, we have two options, two possibilities, right? Either we're going to go to the more happy realms, or we're going to go to the unhappy or the suffering realms, right? And then we say, of course, we want to go to the happy realms. So then we wonder, how can we do that? And the practices to help us to create the causes for not going to the lower realms, but instead going to the happy realms, is that we take strongly refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha.
Sorry. Anyway, it reminded us to silence our phones.
Yeah, we got here reminded that we need to silence the phones. Thank you. So how do we prevent ourselves from falling into the unhappy realms? That is by developing refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and by abstaining from harming sentient beings, which are the causes for suffering, right? And then we're going to think about how do we really get into the higher realms, and that is by practicing the 10 virtuous actions. But then when we practice the 10 virtuous actions, we maybe create the causes for having a good next rebirth, but then how certain is that, right? Because we don't know 100% for sure that we can practice the Dharma again, that we can practice virtue again. We do not know what karma is going to ripen. We might end up in a very bad situation where all the delusions get triggered. So then we say, and then on top of that, we meditate on and we reflect on the fact that even if we have a good future rebirth, there's going to be suffering. Because in all the rebirth that we possibly can take in samsara, in our cyclic existence, there is always suffering involved, right? And so then we reflect on these sufferings that are in every samsaric life, and then we come to the mind of definite emergence, the mind of renunciation that says, I want to be free of all the sufferings of samsara. Right? That is the mind of renunciation. That is the mind of the medium scope practitioner. And then when we have develop that mind, then we look around us and then we see that there are so many sentient beings who are suffering from exactly the same as we suffer from. And so then we realize that we generate the mind that says, I'm not going to go and liberate myself only from samsara. I'm going to help all sentient beings to do the same. How can I do that? In my present state, I cannot do anything. But if I generate the mind of Bodhicitta, the mind that wishes to attain enlightenment for all sentient beings, and then practice the path until I'm enlightened, then I have the best capacity to help sentient beings to either become liberated from samsara or to develop enlightenment as well. Right? That's the foundation that we talked about. And so we also looked a little bit in the obstacles in developing bodhicitta. And the main obstacle that we have is our mind of the self-cherishing thought. Right? The self-cherishing thought, which is focused on disciples, our way of getting what we need and not receiving any harm. The self-cherishing thought is, and somehow the self-cherishing thought feels like my happiness is more important than your happiness, right? We have the feelings arising in our mind, and in dependence on that, we react to these feelings, right? And so we are all the time concerned with ourselves. We do not react to the feelings that arise in other beings' minds because we don't feel that. Right? So this is how we become kind of obsessed with ourselves. The feelings are there, and the wish to become happy is there, to become free of suffering there. And so we keep reacting in dependence on that mind. So that is our biggest obstacle to developing bodhicitta. Can someone add the compass recording as Zoom is not behaving well? So maybe we record it on the computer.
Yeah. Also, I think we need to check our internet connection. How do I minimize?
Maybe if people just, rather than breaking the recording, if people can disconnect from Wi-Fi in the Gompa, that might help. Like if anybody's connected from their phones.
If anyone's connected to the Wi-Fi in the Gompa, could you just disconnect? We have a low internet connection. I'm just going to check if we are in. Let's see, we're still at Tushita. Yes. We need to go to basement.
Yeah, go available.
Yeah, connected. Oh, okay.
Don't. Oh, okay.
How's it now, Nivita?
It's better. I think it'll get better now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So very sorry. I won't start again. So we looked into our main obstacle for developing bodhicitta, which is our self-cherishing mind. The self-cherishing mind is actually the cause of all our suffering. It doesn't bring any happiness at all. And that self-cherishing mind is based on the self-grasping mind, the mind that holds the self to exist as a unitary, permanent, independent entity, while in actuality the self doesn't exist like that. Right? So we also looked a little bit into what can we do in order to counteract that mind. We can meditate on emptiness, we can meditate on dependent arising. We can also think about the delusions itself. So then we also looked into the benefits of bodhicitta, right, last time, to help us inspire the mind. And so today we're going to look into how we develop bodhicitta. And in general, we can say there are two methods to develop bodhicitta. One is called the 7 cause and effect method, and one is called exchanging self and others. And so we can combine these two methods into one, and then there are 11 points that we go through. And I thought maybe tonight we just go through these 11 points, then we cover both methods. And so then when you reflect back on these methods and you go through the text, you can find both of them in the Lamrim text. Then you can pick up like, oh yeah, this is from this and that is from that. Yeah, I can also mention which one, which method, what point belongs to. All right, so that was a short introduction, and then maybe we just settle the mind for a couple of minutes to make sure that the mind is fully present in the here and now, so that we can retain as much as possible from what we are hearing. And also connect with the teachings in our heart. And so the best way to bring the mind to the present moment is to bring the mind to the body. Because the body is always in the present moment. It's never in the past, it is never in the future. And so by just letting your mind rest on your body, all the aspects of your mind that are maybe still wandering in what you have been doing today, or maybe aspects of your mind are wondering what you're going to do after this session or tomorrow. Allow them to all come to your body, knowing that by reflecting on what already has happened, we cannot change what has happened. And so if something has happened that is difficult for you, you can promise yourself you will go back to that after this session. But now you cannot change anything about that. So all that energy of your mind that is still in the past, bring that to the present moment, to your body. And then all the aspects of your mind that are already jumping into the future, thinking what you're going to do after this session, thinking what you're going to do tomorrow. You can reflect on the fact that by thinking about that right now is maybe not the best preparation for being most in your power and in your energy tomorrow. If you need to prepare for something, if you need to have your energy ready for something that is going to happen tomorrow, the best way to prepare is to bring your mind to the present moment, connect with where your body is right now. And if you would do that in every moment till tomorrow, you have the best chance to prepare yourself. You will be most connected with all your qualities. And when our mind is fully present in the here and now, we can listen carefully, we can listen concentrated. We can maybe even feel what is going on inside us, how these teachings move our mind. And so with that introduction, what I gave in mind, set for yourself a good motivation for listening to these teachings tonight. that motivation, we can start. So not everyone was here in the weekend. Just let me have a look. Okay. No, everything seems to be okay. Great. So we spoke this weekend about developing the mind that has compassion for self and compassion for others. And the first thing that we spoke about in order to, not the first thing that we spoke about, but one important aspect that we spoke about was developing equanimity. And last week when we finished the teachings on Thursday, we were actually at that point, right? How do we develop equanimity? When it speaks about in the text about developing bodhicitta, in order to even be able to start, we need to have equanimity. So equanimity is a prerequisite for bodhicitta, right? In the method of exchanging self for others, that is the first point that you develop, right? And in the 7 cause and effect method, it is given as the prerequisite. It's not a point of the 7 cause and effect method, but it's the prerequisite for that. So does anyone remember that mind of equanimity, what we talk about? Why that is important? What happens if we don't have equanimity?
We feel the push and pull of attachment and aversion.
We have constant push and pull of attachment and aversion. And if we look at our attachment and aversion towards sentient beings, what does it create in our mind? How do we see the other persons? Friends, enemies, and neutral people, or strangers, we call them, right? So there will be people that we are very strongly pulled towards, which are our friends, our family, our relatives, those that we have a strong connection with. And then there are those that we feel an aversion to, or maybe even anger. So these are called our enemies. And then we have those that we have not a particular reaction towards. These are the strangers, people that we don't know, people that do not really affect our mind, right? And so the 3 groups of friends, enemies, and strangers, they are based on what these people are doing to us, for us, right? When they benefit us, we call them friends. When they harm us, we call them enemies. When they don't do anything particularly, we call them strangers. Right? So the way we divide people in this way is based on my self-cherishing mind, on me, my benefit. What can you do for me? Right? Sounds very ugly, but this is how we do that. Right? This is how we develop relationships. What can you do for me? If there is nothing in the relationship for us, we're not going to go there. Right? If we receive harm from someone, we turn around and we leave. Right? Or we have strong judgments, or we have strong reactions. And so having a mind that is constantly reacting, which is based on the self-cherishing mind, is an obstacle to bodhicitta, right? Because the mind of bodhicitta wishes to benefit all sentient beings without exception. All sentient beings without exception. Which means not even one sentient being can we leave out. And it is said, if we have a very strong aversion to one sentient being, right, that is our obstacle to bodhicitta. But we can also say, in dependence on that sentient beings, you will be able to develop bodhicitta. Right? That becomes our most precious object of meditation. Right? Because when we can develop loving kindness and compassion towards that person that we have such strong aversion towards, then all the other sentient beings will become more easy. Right? So think about who that is for you. It's very helpful. Oh, that person. Yeah, that person is going to become my teacher. That person is going to help me to develop bodhicitta. If I use that person as my object of meditation, and I am able to develop loving kindness and compassion for that person, then my bodhicitta might become successful. Right? So we need to see that having this favoritism towards others is actually an obstacle. Not only that, it is also completely irrational. It is our emotional reaction. What can you do for me? It is an emotional reaction. It is not based on reason, right? We're not walking around and we think rationally, what can you do for me? And on the basis of that, we establish relationships. Right? Maybe some people do that, but what we're talking about is our emotional reaction. I like you, I don't like you. Right? So what would be rational? So then, in Buddhism it is said that all sentient beings want to be happy and want to be free of suffering. So in that regard, there is no difference between sentient beings. So if I focus instead of what is good for me, if I'm going to focus on what is good for everyone, right? We all want to be happy. We all want to be free of suffering. Right? If I'm focused on me, there is always a difference between me and you, because me is more important than you. But if I'm going to focus on everybody, then we're all the same. Right? It's for the mind actually more easy. We are all the same. I don't have to think, who is going to get the ice cream? Right? I don't have to think, who should I choose? It's like you're equally important. Becomes more easy. Right? Then from my point of view, still holding on to that some people are friends, some people are enemies, some people are strangers. From my point of view, I can think about that these relationships are actually quite unstable. They change, right? Whoever is my friend today, there was a point in time that I didn't know that person. That person was a stranger for me, right? And then due to causes and conditions, they became my friend. And we might also know people that were my friend, and then something happened, and we cannot stand that person anymore. They have become our enemies. And some people, they were very good friends with us when we were little, but we lost connection and they have become strangers for us. Right? So relationships are not fixed as inherently existing enemies or friends or strangers. They are flexible, they change depending on the causes and the conditions. Right? Then I can think, but this person is now doing great benefit to me in this life, so therefore this person is more important to me. But maybe many other people have done great benefit to you in past lives. But due to the fact that we have died and taken a new body, we cannot remember that. So you doing something beneficial for me in this life doesn't mean that therefore you're more important, because everybody else might have done a lot of benefit to me in past lives. I just can't see it. Right? So that also doesn't make any sense. It's not good enough. You have done a lot of benefit for me, therefore I'm going to favor you. Not good enough. Because everybody else might have done a lot of benefit in past lives. Right? Does that mean that we cannot have friends and we cannot have enemies? Does it mean that we should not avoid certain people? Does it mean that we cannot have certain people more close to us than others? Yes, we can have that, right? We have karmic connections with people. So sometimes, with the ones that we have a positive karmic connection with, they might be more close to us. We might see them more often. And there are people that we prefer to avoid because meeting with them is going to create only problems and it's not going to serve our practice of Dharma in any way. For this moment, we make sure that we don't encounter them. But in the mind, these sentient beings are equal. Right? So in the mind, we try to create a state in which we do not favor whether someone is very close to us or someone is not close to us in this life. Right? The mind is equanimous. The mind is not attached. The mind doesn't have an aversion. All right? That's equanimity. So on the basis of equanimity, are there any questions about equanimity? Otherwise, I go to the second point.
So, equanimity we define as not having biases, any sort of biases towards people.
Yeah, equanimity can be defined as not having bias towards people, towards sentient beings.
Okay, so if one is devoid of any sort of biases.
Yes, if you have perfect equanimity, you don't have any bias. Yeah? Yes.
While practicing compassion towards a person that you dislike, what happens is, suppose you develop that compassion, but again it goes. Again that dislike comes back. So like, how do you keep it constant that you keep having compassion for the person you do not like? So
How do we develop compassion for the person that we do not like? What stops you from, so you say that you're practicing that and then you lose the practice.
yeah, I have tried
Why?
doing that.
Why? Why do you lose the
Because
practice?
again those like hurtful moments come back.
Okay, so there is still some hurt in your mind that makes that you react with an aversion, and then you project that aversion on that person, right? So then you need to sit with that hurt. Were you here yesterday morning? Yes. So we spoke about having unpleasant feelings and how to be with unpleasant feelings, right? Independence on unpleasant feelings, aversion arises in the mind. As long as that is happening, it's very difficult to see somebody as not your enemy, right? You automatically see that person as your enemy. So then compassion cannot come. So I would say for you, a prerequisite before to develop equanimity is that you first sit with the hurtful feelings, allow them to arise in your mind, fully digest them, right? So that experience that you had is not affecting you in the present moment anymore, that is really in the past. Then it's more easy to develop equanimity. All right. So there is a question in the chat. So when we talk about bodhicitta, then these kind of questions always come. These impossible questions, right? As if we want to prove that actually bodhicitta for all sentient beings is not possible. Because every time we think about pest control at home, I try to use some herbal repellents, especially for the cockroaches. But there are always some who die. How do I address this moral dilemma? Right? I can't help it that I have to kill, right? This is where we end up to. So whatever action we are doing in samsara, there is some killing involved, right? Because samsara is in the nature of suffering. Whether we eat organic food or not organic food, there is always killing involved. Whether we are vegan or vegetarian or non-veg, there is always killing involved, right? When we clean the house, there's always killing involved. When we drink water, there's always killing involved. When we, everything that sustains life, the way we obtain that, there is always killing involved. We cannot stop that. We cannot, right? But we can think about it. What is the least harmful action to do? right? So then sometimes, you know, animals, they take over in our house, and then you have to do something about that. Yeah, I hadn't answered your question yet. I just did some introduction to it. So then when we feel like, you know, one time I lived at Chinweizik Institute and we had so many cockroaches in the kitchen. And so we try not to kill them, but there's so many. So what the nuns would do, they would, at a certain point, 9 o'clock, turn off the light and wait 15 minutes and then turn on the light, right? And then you see everywhere full of cockroaches. And then would sweep them up, put them in a bucket that they couldn't get out, and then take them around super and release them. And they did it every evening. But it was like, it doesn't really affect how many cockroaches are there. They just kept coming. So then eventually they had to call the pest control. And so then you can, you know, you can do things like you talk to the sentient beings before the pest control comes, and you say, this is what is going to happen in 2 days' time. This is what is going to happen. Now is your time. If you want to get out, please get out. We do not want to hurt you, you know, but at the same time, there are many reasons why we need this space to be free of you, right? So you can leave or otherwise. And then when you need to kill them or somebody else kills them for you, you can dedicate your merits towards them, right? And you can pray for their future life, that they might find a perfect human rebirth in which they meet the Dharma, in which they meet the teachings, and that they, having been in your kitchen for so long, that they have made a Dharma connection or a connection with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and so that connection may ripen and be nourished in future lifetimes, you know. So that is what you can do, something that you can do.
Venerable,
Yeah.
I want to share. This is one thing that has improved in my life after attending Dharma teachings.
Yeah.
So earlier it was very instinctive. You see a mosquito, you spot it, you see even if one cockroach, you just kill it. So now I don't do that. So luckily I haven't had a major infestation, but
Right.
you know, if there's one cockroach, let it go. Like it goes away. One fly, it'll go away.
One cockroach, one fly, they go away.
Yeah,
That's
so
that's
it's
true.
created this gap between one doesn't react instantly.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
a little bit of a gap.
Yes. So someone is explaining how by becoming more aware of the non-virtues that we create by killing, that she managed to create a gap between the wish to kill it and not doing it, right? Observing that wish to kill, but then holding back and not doing it. And so when there are a few sentient beings that are, you know, like mosquitoes or like cockroaches, they will go away. They don't stay in your home. And then you can try to do everything that you can so that they do not like your home, right? So that they don't find food and they don't find whatever else would be good for them.
For that matter, even if we kill a cockroach or a mosquito or a housefly, we can always pray for them to have a better life in the next.
Yeah, so then even when we kill some animal in our house, we can always pray for them to have a better life, right? But it is not that we then think, oh, I can pray for them, so therefore I can kill them.
No.
Right? That's not what we do.
No, not like that.
But if it happens accidentally, then we can pray for them, right?
We are sitting and some mosquito comes and we just do like that.
Yeah.
Kill it.
Yes. So, but this lady just explained how she became more and more aware of that, and then she stopped doing that, right? She stopped catching that mosquito and killing it. Right? In the beginning, it's difficult because it's an automatic reaction, right? But then every time when you do it, you observe, oh, I killed a mosquito, right? Oh, I killed him. I don't want to do that. I don't want to. And at a certain point, you can hold yourself just before you hit.
But then we have to protect ourselves from malaria and dengue and everything.
Yeah, and that is then the next question that people say. We have to protect ourselves from malaria. So
Wear long sleeves.
wear long sleeves. In this weather, that's quite challenging. So we have to find a solution that is least harmful, right? So we cannot stop the killing that is involved in being in samsara. We can contribute to it, we can lessen it, we can develop the care for sentient beings, right? Because when we kill one sentient being, you know, even if it is a mosquito, we take away everything from that sentient being, everything, right? It's like somebody comes and says, I chop off your head, you know. We take everything away. So that is a huge suffering that you actually inflict on a sentient being. You take their life away. So this we have to remember when we do that, right? We have to find the middle, the balance. Okay, can we move? Yeah? Okay. So that was the equanimity. Okay. So then from equanimity, we go to the next step, which is that we recognize all sentient beings as having been our mother. So this is the first step of the 7 cause and effect method, recognizing all sentient beings as having been your mother. Right? So why do we say that all sentient beings have been our mother? To show that we have a connection with each and every sentient being. Right? In Buddhism, we talk about past and future lives. Is anyone who doesn't believe in past and future lives? When I'm in India, it's quite easy. Most people just accept it. Skeptical. Okay.
Sort of agnostic
Yeah.
about it.
Okay. I'll explain you how Buddhism explains it, right? Why there is past and future lives, and therefore why we have a connection with all sentient beings. But even if you don't believe it, it doesn't matter. We can think in other ways in order to establish that we have a connection with each and every sentient being. But in terms of past and future lives, Buddhism says we as a person, we have a body and a mind. The body, the main cause for the body is the sperm and the egg from mom and dad. They come together. Then there is consciousness or the mind which enters into the sperm and the egg. That is a cooperative condition, and that needs to be present for a person to grow. Right? Then we have a mind. The main cause for the mind is the previous moment of the mind. The cooperative condition for the mind is the body. Right? But the main cause for a moment of mind is the previous moment of mind. Mind cannot be created by matter, which is the body. And the body cannot be created by the mind, in the sense of my physical body, the cause for that is not coming from my mind, in the sense that the matter is not created by the mind. Right? Body and mind, they come together, they influence each other, they are connected with each other, but it cannot be that from the matter of the body I create consciousness, or that from consciousness I create matter. This is not possible. So if I say that the mind is created by the previous moment of mind, then when we're going to trace it back, like, okay, where is the mind from this present moment coming from? From the previous moment. Where is the mind from a 30-year-old coming from? From a 29-year-old. Right? The mind from a 2-year-old is coming from the mind of a 1-year-old. The mind of the baby in the stomach of the mother, where is that coming from? From the previous moment. Right? Then you go back to the moment of conception. And then you say, where is that mind coming from? Where is it coming from? Huh? From the bardo. So the bardo means the previous moment of consciousness. Right, so when we talk about that something comes from the previous moment, you cannot posit a beginning, because you have to say, but if there is a first moment of consciousness, something must have created that, right? And if I say, well, the previous moment created that, then that is not the first moment. Then there was another first moment, and that had another first moment. Right? So we cannot posit the first moment. We can only posit a continuous stream of moments from which we cannot trace the beginning. We cannot see the beginning. They said Buddha could not see the beginning of consciousness. So therefore we talk about a consciousness since beginningless time. Right? Consciousness cannot be destroyed, because this moment of consciousness is the cause for the next moment of consciousness. Right? If I cannot posit the beginning, then I can also not posit an end. Right? So we need to think about that. In the beginning you think, really, you know? So you need to familiarize yourself with that logic. And if you want to have some kind of, not proof, but experience, you can meditate on this and you can think, where is my consciousness coming from? Is my consciousness the same consciousness as that I had 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Right? I have memories of that time, so the consciousness must be same. Right? And then I go back to in the womb and to the first moment, and then I go back from there. And sometimes people even end up in their past life. You know, they suddenly get images from a past life. But even if that doesn't happen, you can get a feel for, yeah, there must be something, right? So that is how Buddhism explains it, with a kind of, with logic, right? Of course, with the Western science, that logic is said that is not logic, because they do not acknowledge that there is a consciousness, right? They say the mind is the same as the brain, or the mind is a function of the brain. And so then you would have to say, if the mind would be the brain, yeah, then when you die, then it is finished, right? But then there are many, many little children, especially in India, who have memories from past lives. And there are also people who have written down these memories and have investigated whether these memories had some kind of valid base, right? So there was this boy, and I think he was 3 years old, and he remembered that he was killed in his past life. And he remembered whose family was, and I think the family lived in the next village. So the researchers, they took him there, and he could point out the murderer from him in his past life, and he could point out his family, right? So then the family had to acknowledge, yeah, that all happened. You know? How does a 3-year-old from another village know that? Right? And so there are people who have written whole books about all different stories from children who remembered past lives, and they would investigate their stories, right? And all proven to be true. So from experience, we can say there are people who have memories from past lives. Yeah.
And of course, it talks about the continuity of life, that something ends, another starts. But what happens in between? Like one life ends, and if there is some gap, okay?
So what happens between two lifetimes? What do you mean with the gap?
Gap is like the rebirth has not happened immediately. The rebirth has not happened immediately. And
Yes.
there is a gap. Is it a possibility, or like it doesn't happen?
So according to Buddhism, the moment we die, we do not I mean, you can take rebirth immediately, but it can also take up to 49 days before you find a next body. And so in that state, you are in an in-between state, which is called the Bardo state, right? There in the Bardo state, you have a body made out of wind. So it's very unstable, a very unstable body. And so that body has the form of the life that you're going to take next, right? And so you stay there for up to 49 days, and after every 7th day there is an opportunity that you might be able to find the body, and if you find the body you incarnate. If you don't find the body you have to wait, right?
The maximum time is 49 days.
Yeah, and according to Buddhism maximum time is 49 days. Yeah.
What if one doesn't get a body even after 49 days?
You will have to, you get a body. It's like it's no option. It's no option. You are forced into a body.
This first
And now you go.
That's why we have 49 days of prayers. for
And that's why we
people.
do 49 days of prayers for those who have deceased. Yes, to make sure that during that time that someone is in the bardo, that we accompany their body and mind, you know, or I wanted to say their soul, but we don't talk about the soul in Buddhism. We accompany them with the merit of our prayers, you know, and we sometimes when we do strong prayers and we have strong connection with that person, we can actually increase their merit, and actually they might take a better rebirth than they would have done without the prayers, right? That's the best we can do for especially for our sangha, you know, when one of our sangha members die, then we pray so that they have enough merit to take a good rebirth. Yes.
Question.
Yes. Yes.
So, as per Hindu mythology,
Yes.
mythology, we talk of the soul.
Yes.
What we call as consciousness.
Yes.
We call it soul, and they say that sometimes if you've done very good karma, you may not be reborn again, but merge with the God, hasn't it?
So in Hinduism they talk about the soul, and if you have purified all your karma, you might actually merge with God.
Yes.
Yeah, they call it moksha.
Moksha.
Yeah.
Liberation.
Oh yeah, that's liberation, right? You call that liberation.
So then you're not reborn, because the belief is that the moment you're reborn, you will be a part of the samsara, and that cyclical
Yes.
thing of birth, rebirth,
Yes.
will just continue
Yes.
endlessly. But if you've done good karma, then you will not be reborn, or you will not die again. So
Yes.
Transcend the illusory world.
Sorry?
You transcend the illusory world.
You transcend the illusory world. Yes, yes. But you know, if we're gonna think about that, then we have to go into the details of you have to go through really into the philosophy of how life exists and how the nature of reality exists, and maybe that goes too far now, right? And because what is called liberation in Hinduism, in Buddhism we would not call that liberation, we call that differently, you know. So we have to really go into like, what are you defining as liberation, and what is actually happening, and how does Buddhism explain that, right? That's a different, we can do a weekend on that somewhere in the future, right?
And the fact is, even if whether one believes in rebirth or not, the teachings are still very powerful,
Yes.
very beautiful.
Which one?
The teachings, regardless of whether one believes in rebirth or in
Which teachings? These
the
teachings.
on Bodhicitta
Yes,
and
yes,
that
yes,
mind,
yes, yes.
they still remain very powerful.
For sure, for sure, for sure. Yeah, yeah, and I'm not saying you need to believe in this, right? I'm just saying this is the way that we contemplate. And if you are skeptic, think about it, and see what it does to your mind, right? It's like when I saw it, I found it's like really, I actually did believe kind of in reincarnation, but at the same time, I was grown up as a Christian, so it didn't really resonate on all the levels in my mind, right? Then you have to do it again and again and again and again. And at a certain point, it's like, yeah, how can it not be like that? Right? But that's where I end up. But you might not end up there, you know? So you see what it does to your mind.
One thing more, if every one of us is going to get a body within 49 days after death,
Yes,
and let it be a human body or any body, whatever is there,
yes.
why the populations are increasing?
So how come if we all have to take rebirth that the population is increasing, right?
Yeah.
Because but the animal, you know, the human realm is not that many sentient beings. If we look into the animal realm, there are many sentient beings
They
there,
are also increasing.
right? They're also increasing.
Yeah.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Also, many are extinct, right?
Animals, insects, bacteria, everything.
You really think everything is increasing? I'm not so sure, you know. I'm not so
Because-
sure. When I was young and we would drive in the car, then the holes, the how you said it, the windscreen, the glass, would be full of insects. Nowadays, there's nothing. All these insects gone. You know, you hardly see any bees. You see hardly any.
So they've come into the human realm. And
So they're all born as human
Then there's
beings.
one thing they say in Hindu mythology, they say that anyone who does very good karma, he gets a human body. That
Yes.
is, most of the livings in this world. are
Yes,
doing
we
good
need to have a
karma.
lot of merit in order to
And
become a
because
human
more
being.
and more of human beings are increasing now.
Yeah, that's true. So somehow, many sentient beings now have the karma to be reborn as a human being. That's true.
So
So
that
they
means
must have good karma.
More
You
of
know?
the living beings are doing good karma, that means.
No. So if we think about when did we do that good karma, right? If the mind is really without a beginning, that means that we have been taking rebirth again and again and again and again and again. For sure, every one of us has done some good karma somewhere in the past, right? Also lots of negative karma in the past. 1 minute. So when this karma starts to, when there is a time that the population of human beings on this planet is going to be huge, then the karma of so many sentient beings will ripen to be reborn as a human being. Right? So there are many sentient beings on this planet, but then there's so many sentient beings we cannot see. Right? Some we call hungry ghosts, some we call hell beings. And these beings are in such a big number, so much bigger than human beings, so much bigger than animals. Right? The more suffering, the more we go to the lower realms, the deeper we go into the lower realms, the more beings are there, you know. It's like a pyramid. Right? So we cannot say, oh, there's so many human beings, therefore there are more sentient beings, you know. Somehow they have been increased, they have not. Number is the same. Number is numberless. Countless.
Continuing on the insect theme, I used to visit an old lady.
Yes.
And I used to sit at her house. She was alone. Her children stay away from. So what happened one day? Some insects came in, small black, not ants but insects. Maybe they had flown into the house.
Yes.
So she started killing them. There were about 3-4 with the slippers. Now I don't know how you would interpret this. You know, I mean everybody would be having a different interpretation. But I did not intervene. I regret now that I should have stopped her. But she's an old lady. So I didn't want to stop her.
So when we see other sentient beings kill other sentient beings, right?
Maybe she had
We
some
cannot.
phobia.
What do we do? How do we stop them, right? Because sometimes we think, oh, first of all, when we have a lot of a biased mind, then we feel like, oh, you poor sentient being, right? That is going to be killed. But when the mind is more balanced, then what we can see is, well, that karma for that sentient being is gone, is finished. But the karma for the one who's killing is that one is creating karma, right? So that one is creating a lot of causes for suffering for themselves. So we can warn them, right? We can say, you know, when you kill, you can say, according to Buddhism, that action is going to come back to you. And they say, oh, it doesn't matter, I don't believe in that. It's okay. You know, but then you can say, but I believe in it, and I really feel that you're creating now so many causes for suffering, and I find it so horrible to think about you while you have to undergo that suffering, you know. Please don't kill these. And you educate. You educate to the best of your ability. But you cannot...
That I should have stopped her.
No, you cannot
I'm
stop.
thinking.
No, because then you are also kind of violent, no? We don't want to practice that.
Maybe I should have stopped her.
Well, you didn't stop her, so I think it was fine that you did.
Why didn't I stop?
I think it was fine what you did. You just pray for her, because you know that she created the causes for suffering. So you pray for her that that karma might ripen on you, right? And not on her, something like that. That is really practicing the big heart.
There's so much
Wisdom. Sorry, I see your hand. Yes, I come back to you.
There's so much wisdom on the internet that I have said this to someone that you shouldn't kill the mosquitoes and everything. They're like, we are liberating them.
Yes. So then people think.
Some thoughts say that.
Some people say that, yeah. So we just kill the sentient beings and then they are liberated.
We are liberating them for a better life.
Liberated from their animal rebirth, right? Or liberated from the insect world. But what is going to...
killing them.
Deliberately killing them so that their life as an insect is finished. But then we do not know what is going to happen after.
Therefore, they say,
right? If you have clairvoyance and you can see that you, by killing that insect, is going to be they're going to be reborn as a human being, sure. But do we have that clairvoyance? You know, we have no idea what we are doing. Yes, you, and then I continue.
Ma'am, in many Abrahamic religions.
In many?
Abrahamic religions.
Abrahamic. The books of
Islam and Christianity.
Yeah,
The Abrahamic.
I don't know anything about that.
Christianity.
My question is in Abrahamic religion there is a concept of like humans are created by God. Okay. In Oriental religions, which is like Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, or Secularism in Japan or in China, there is a concept that of evolution. I mean, like in Hinduism also, because they believe that it was a evolutionary process. Right? Started from
So what is your question? Because people on the line, they cannot hear what you are saying, you know?
So in Buddhism, what is the concept of life? Like it started, it created by...
Where is life coming from?
Yes.
So life is coming from the mind. Life is created by mind. The worlds are created by mind. Your mind. Our mind. Your life, everything that you experience is created by your mind. That's what Buddhism says. So there is no concept of a creator. That doesn't exist. The creator of all is your mind.
So how human...
But I'm not going to explain that because we're talking about Bodhicitta. That's a different course. Okay. Because otherwise I cannot really finish the teachings on Bodhicitta and that would be really, really, really a shame. Yes?
Venerable, before you move on, you said that you would explain, even if you don't believe in the Buddhist idea of rebirth, there are other methods we can use. What
Yes. I'm gonna, but we haven't even started with that all sentient beings are your mother, right? So I haven't finished that. And so then, so let me pick up on that. And then maybe I explain these 11 points right? And then if you have questions, write them down, and then at the end we can ask questions about that. Is that okay? Otherwise, I will never be able to get through them. It is quite in depth. So recognizing all sentient beings have been our mothers. So if the mind, if the body and the mind, if we have been taking rebirth since beginningless time, we have been taking rebirth countless times. And in all these lifetimes, we must have had a mother that gave birth to us, right? So therefore, we can say that all sentient beings have been our mothers at one point in time. Some teachers say they not only have been our mothers one time, they have been our mothers countless times, each one of them. And then you say, but I'm not sure, you know. Then we say, but you cannot be sure they have not been your mother. Right? If you doubt, but you cannot be sure that they not have been your mother. So, but you better assume that they have been your mother, right? So all sentient beings have been a mother. Why do we talk about the mother? Because in general, and it is not for everyone, but in general, the mother is the one that we are most close to, that has been taking care of us. I mean, the 9 months that she was carrying her in her womb. And then on top of that, when we were completely dependent upon the care from another human being, they were the ones that took care of us. Right? And the way that the mother takes care of her child is that in general, any suffering that a child feels, the mother would be so happy to take that on herself in order to free the child from the suffering. And if the mother has anything that can give happiness, the mother is so happy to give that to the child and not consume that herself. Right? But it can be, so this is how we think. Then it can be that I won't go there now. That your mother has not been so kind, but I won't go there now. So instead of not just everyone has been your mother in past lives, countless times, but they also have been your father, they also have been your brother, your sister, your auntie, whatever, right? So this is what Shanti Deva does in the Exchanging Self and Others, that there have been, you have other relationship than just having been your mother. So this is about remembering the kindness of someone. So if your mother was not the most kind person in your life, think about someone who has given you a lot of kindness. You know, that you feel like, oh wow, that person did something for me. And then meditate on all sentient beings have been like that at a certain point in time. Right? So it is about kindness, what we meditate upon. Lama Zopa Rinpoche, he pushed it like this. Even if your mother was not kind in the sense of worldly kindness, she still was incredibly kind. Because in dependence on any suffering that you have experienced, you have learned so many things. You have an opportunity to develop so many qualities in yourself. You have purified so much negative karma in dependence on that. So how kind? Right? That is more difficult to contemplate, but this is where you can go with the mind. Right? I think advise first to think about people who have been kind to you in terms of worldly kindness, giving you what you need. You know, and if we think about the mother, then we can even think about Venerable Robina, she says it like this: even if your mom hasn't done any good for you, right? At least she didn't abort you.
Yeah. The biggest
She gave you
benefit,
life.
She brought us into this world.
She gave you life. She gave you this body. Right? And independence on this body, we can meet the Dharma, we can study the Dharma. So you can say, even if your mom carried you in her womb for 9 months, that in itself is an incredible kindness. Right? And then we can think about all the suffering that mom experienced when she was carrying you, giving birth to you, how painful that was. Right? Even if that was all she did. That's already incredible kind. And so I've also heard from teachers who, there was the question asked, if mom has adopted you, right, after birth, she has given you away up for adoption, who is more kind, the mother who raised you or the mother who gave birth to you? And then the Lamas say, the mother who gave birth to you, your birth mother, you meditate on her kindness. That kindness is seen as bigger or maybe more important than the kindness of your adoptive mother. Right? So these are things that we think about. We don't have to come to a conclusion ourselves tonight, but we can think about it. Right? These are just points of view that we can think about. So then if we feel that we cannot believe past and future lives, what do we do in this? We can think that all sentient beings have been kind to us, are kind to us, because for everything that we have in life, all the basic things, not just the basic things, everything that we have, everything that we experience comes only about independence upon sentient beings. Right? And so you can reflect on that little bit of rice that is on your plate every day. Where is it coming from? How many sentient beings are involved? How many sentient beings lost their life while that rice being produced? How many sentient beings have given their life while producing that rice? And so you think about that. And then you can see that there are so many sentient beings contributing to you being alive, you sustaining life. Right? That is extremely kind. So you can think about the kindness of others in that life, in that way. All right? So all sentient beings have been our mothers. And when we think about that, we remember their kindness. So we can think about whatever sentient beings experience, what they have to go through, all the suffering that they experience in order to give us some kind of happy experience, how it helps us to sustain life. We reflect on that. And then from that, the wish comes to repay that kindness. Right? If you really see that we are not able to produce anything for ourselves, right? No food, no clothes, no building the house, no providing you with water, we are not able to do anything. Everything is coming from others, right? And we walk around on this planet and say, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, give it. But if you really think about it, it's like, I mean, how strange that I just want to take, what can I give back? What can I give back? And so when I'm going to give back, to who do I give back? To everyone. Because I realize that all sentient beings are somehow providing me with whatever I need. Right? In order to really repay the kindness, we need to see the kindness. In order to see the kindness, we need to see the goodness that others are giving us. And the more we see that others are providing us with whatever sustains our life, the more they become attractive to us. right? When someone is really kind to us all the time, giving us things and helping us, and they become attractive to us, right? We like to be with them. We feel not attractive in the sense of very beautiful, but in the sense that we want to be with them. We want to be close to them, right? That feeling we want to create with all sentient beings. Because when that is there, automatically you want to take care of them. So then from remembering their kindness, we wish to repay their kindness. And then Shantideva, in this method of equalizing self and others, he then talks about you have to equalize self and others. That we all, you have to understand that we are all the same in wanting to be happy and not wanting to suffer. That there is no difference between any of us. And then in order to nourish that thought, we think about all the disadvantages of cherishing the self. You know, just making myself more important, my happiness more important than your happiness. And seeing how that attitude has caused all the suffering that we experience. And although it looks like it is trying to make us happy, if we really check, then we are still in suffering, right? It hasn't been successful at all. We have been listening to that self-cherishing mind since beginningless time. And we are still in that pitiful situation where we are right now, right? We have to one day come to the conclusion, this is actually not really helping me out of all suffering, because I'm still in it. I'm still in it. I have quite good conditions in this life, but I'm still suffering. I'm still not really understanding how life works. I'm still making, doing things that cause suffering to me. And then we have to say that comes from your self-cherishing mind. Right? And then we think about the advantages of developing bodhicitta, of cherishing others. How once we start to cherish others, there will be happiness for others and there will be happiness for ourselves. Right? So we think about all these advantages, but we already have spoken about all that, right? And then we start to practice exchanging self for others. So what we do is we visualize that when we see the suffering of other sentient beings, we visualize that we start taking that suffering on ourselves. That is the development of compassion. Right? And we visualize that. We're not actually taking on the suffering. That's not possible for us. Right? Maybe when we have developed our mind very far, when we are, someone like Lama Zopa Rinpoche or many other highly realized teachers, they can actually take on the suffering as if they are feeling it themselves. But for us, it is a visualization that we do. So you can visualize those that are suffering in front of you, whether that is the people that you love or strangers or the people that you do not like, and you visualize that their suffering comes into you. You take it away from them. That is practice of compassion. Then the practice of loving kindness is that you visualize that you give them happiness. You give them everything you need. And what you use for that is you use your own resources, you use your own body, and you use your own merit. Everything that you have, right? That's all we have, the body, our resources, and our merit. That you transform into whatever they need, and you give it away. Right? That's the practice of loving kindness. And then when we do that, we strengthen our bodhicitta, we strengthen our loving kindness, and then we get to the thought, developing the extraordinary thought that we take full responsibility for the liberation of all sentient beings. So we're not just wishing other sentient beings to be happy and to be free of suffering, but we're saying, I take the responsibility to actually free all sentient beings from suffering and to give them every happiness that they can get. And so once we have that thought, then the mind of enlightenment arises. The mind of enlightenment that wishes to work solely for the benefit of sentient beings. And so then when that mind arises, then we train in that mind. We make it more strong. Every time that we generate the mind, it becomes more strong. Right? And we try to habituate so much to that mind that eventually it becomes completely spontaneous in our mind. 24 hours a day. And then we enter into the Mahayana path. Does that sound doable to you?
How long does it take?
How long does it take? Can I start today? Yes, we can start today. How long does it take? It depends very much on your merit. It depends very much what we have done in past lives. So for instance, if you have been on the Hinayana path for many lifetimes, right? You haven't maybe not yet entered the path. Or maybe a little bit, no, you haven't entered the path actually, because once you enter into the path, it's going to be difficult. But you have been practicing the Hinayana path, right? You have not really entered into the path, but you have done the practices for many lifetimes. It's very difficult to generate bodhicitta, because you're so used to going for your own liberation, right? So then it's harder. But if you already have practiced many lifetimes, you know, working for the benefit of sentient beings, it might not be so difficult. Sometimes I wonder, you know, that in the Mahayana, I see many people who have the habit of being a people pleaser, right? Where we choose at a very early age, out of fear, not out of pure compassion, but we do make that choice that we want to work for the benefit of others, right? We want others to be happy. We do not want them to suffer. There might be some inclination towards the Mahayana. It's there, right? It comes automatically. Not everyone chooses that way of coping, right? So when you recognize that, like, oh yeah, I'm a people pleaser, I love to work for the benefit of sentient beings, but I have to check my motivation, that it is really coming from loving kindness and compassion, really coming from wishing to be of benefit in the sense that you want to liberate sentient beings from all their suffering, and not from fear. Fear for being rejected, fear for being excluded, fear for being not good enough, not from there, right? So we need to purify that motivation. This is just my addition, right? I'm not sure if that's true, but this is what I observe, and you can do in that whatever you want. It's not in the text. And so yes, when we practice the giving and taking, that is the actual practice of Tonglen. Kind of, you know, it's like you can go from there into the practice of Tonglen. And I thought maybe tomorrow at the end of the session we can practice together Tonglen, you know, just to get an experience, because in a way it's kind of insane, right? That we do the total opposite of what we normally do in order to find happiness and freedom from suffering. We do it totally the opposite. So intuitively we feel like, not sure about this, right? Not sure about this. What about me? How do I gonna find what I need? How do I gonna find protection? right? If I'm gonna, and how do I stay free from suffering when I'm gonna take on the suffering of all sentient beings? Oh my gosh, how do I gonna manage that, right? But when we practice it, we can build up the practice. You can then strengthen your mind, and you can experience, hey, actually when I do that, I feel much better. Right? And then when you have some kind of experience in that, that will help you to do it again and again and again. And once you get some kind of experience, then it is like, oh, wow, this is kind of weird, right? Because I've always done the opposite, thinking that it was going to make me happy and making me free of suffering. And I do the opposite, and actually that's working. Right? Once you feel that, you get encouraged to do it more.
I'm scared of it.
You're scared of it. That's a good sign, you know. That's a good sign.
I felt really exhausted after doing it.
After?
Doing Tonglen.
After doing Tonglen?
Yeah, really exhausted.
Why are you exhausted when you do Tonglen?
I'm not sure.
Because you're so scared. You're somewhere
I was
hiding.
scared after, after doing the meditation. I really felt exhausted. Like, I'm scared. Like you said, we'll be doing it tomorrow. I'm like, really? Do I have to do it?
You're scared before you do the meditation?
Because I've done it.
You have done it?
Yeah,
with
2
who?
years. With Kabirji.
With Kabir?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to do it very nice, you know.
We'll do it with ice cream.
And you get an ice cream after. So in order to make it, to help us to learn the technique, you know, we can start with the suffering that we already have, our own suffering. We can do our own past suffering. That's actually also not in the text. But I find that quite helpful to do that. Because often, you know, when we have undigested stuff in our mind, that is actually blocking us from generating equanimity and then also bodhicitta. So when we work with that, it can actually help to create a more relaxed and easygoing mind for ourselves. Then we can do our future suffering. Right? One day you're going to die. It's going to be big suffering. So we can already take that on now so that we don't suffer so much in the future. Right? So then from that we go to the people that we love. Right? Slowly, slowly, slowly. Slowly, slowly, slowly. And when you feel that it works, you know, and then you become less scared. But in a way they say it's good that you're scared. That's your self-cherishing mind, it's there. No way, no way I'm going to do that. Right? As if
I'm doing it way too good, like way too excellent. Like I'm really taking on the suffering. I'm feeling.
Right. You felt the suffering.
Like the word exhausted. Like I feel really exhausted. Like,
yes, but I have the impression that actually you were so terrified inside that fear created the exhaustion. Yeah. Right? That you were the whole time like, and that makes you, yeah. That's my impression. Yeah. So we have to find a way that you feel that you can do it, you know, and we do little steps. And you just do as much as you're comfortable. When you're not comfortable, you just don't do it. Okay? Good. Buddhism is no torture, right? It can come with some suffering, huh?
It's the hardest.
It's the hardest.
Yes.
What?
Practicing Buddhism.
Practicing is very hard. Yeah, it is hard. You know, because everything that we believe in intuitively, we see like, oh my gosh, doesn't exist like that. Right? So we have to do the opposite. And it feels sometimes like we have to go against the stream. Right? And especially when you have a certain practice and you see, oh yeah, this is what I should practice. And then you meet other human beings and they're going the opposite direction. You know, that is what I find very difficult. I keep thinking, they're all going that way, but Buddhism says I should go that way. How do I know this is true, and how do I know that is not true? Right? So then you have to study and contemplate again and again and again to get conviction that actually the opposite of what everyone does is the way to go. You know, there was the liberation. It's like you become a salmon, you know, you go upstream. And then you thrive on going upstream. Okay. Any questions? It is just after 8 o'clock. Any questions from online?
Don't stop.
Don't stop. As Kay says, deep gratitude, Venerable, Tushita, and everyone for your presence and these. Thank you very much. These precious teachings. May all beings across the universe be safe, healthy, at peace, and be free from suffering. Thank you very much. No questions. Did I smash you with bodhicitta? I hope not. Yeah.
Well, I can ask you my question that I asked yesterday.
Oh, that very difficult question.
Yes.
Okay. So there was here a question, how to use shamatha in the development of bodhicitta and the wisdom realizing emptiness. So shamatha is a mind that can focus on an object as long as it wants, single-pointedly, right? A very straight, calm mind. If we want to develop bodhicitta, I'm not sure if it says that it is a prerequisite for developing bodhicitta. I think the shamatha is described as being developed on the path of accumulation. What confuses me is that bodhicitta, in order to enter into the path of the Mahayana, we need to have uncontrived bodhicitta, which is an effortless wish that is in your mind 24 hours a day to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. And so in order to do that, you want to become enlightened. Because that mind is there, I sometimes wonder, do you need shamatha or single-pointed concentration for that? But I don't think it is described, but I can check that. Right? Then when you're on the path of accumulation, you definitely develop shamatha, single-pointed concentration. Once you have that, you can listen single-pointedly to the teachings. You can practice single-pointedly, right? So then you can create, destruction. That is the only thing you do. When we have a mind like that, you can remember so easily, right? Now we constantly forget. Oh, what did she just say about bodhicitta? I forgot. The advantages of bodhicitta, I forgot, right? Because we cannot remember. We are not mindful enough. We do not have single-pointed concentration. But once we have single-pointed concentration, we hear the teaching and we remember, right? So then that helps a lot with the study and remembering. Then with that realization of shamatha, or that single-pointed concentration, besides that, we also develop the mind that realizes emptiness through a conception, right? So we have a very good understanding of emptiness, and then we need to bring these two minds together, the mind of shamatha and the mind of emptiness, and we have to practice them together. And we have to make that concentration and that analytical that analytical mind that is realizing emptiness, we have to bring them together in union. Right? So before we bring them in union, we generate bodhicitta. We already have bodhicitta. With bodhicitta motivation, we practice the union of calm abiding and special insight, focused upon emptiness. And we practice that again and again and again until that realization becomes so strong, or that union becomes so strong, that the conception of the realization of emptiness, the lack of inherent existence, falls away, and we can realize emptiness directly. Right? Then we enter into the path of seeing. Then we need to repeat that realization again and again and again. And every time that we, not every time, but every time that we have enough merit to eliminate another layer of the disturbing emotions, we enter again into the union of calm abiding and special insight, motivated by bodhicitta. And we eliminate a level of first the afflictive obscurations, and we do that. I think there are 10 levels or 7 levels. I think there are 10 levels. At least at the 7th ground, we eliminate all the afflictive obscurations, and then we need to eliminate all the imprints from the grasping at inherent existence, or the imprints of inherent existence. So we do that again with the same union of calm abiding and special insight, motivated by bodhicitta. And so we do that 3 times, and then when everything is removed from the mind, all the mistakes are removed from the mind, then we see the two truths at the same time. Then the mind is always in meditative equipoise, always in single point concentration on emptiness, but at the same time can see conventional reality.
That is the path of seeing?
That's the Buddhahood already.
Oh, okay.
The path of seeing is when the conception of the lack of inherent existence, our realization of emptiness becomes non-conceptual. That is the entrance of the path of seeing. Does that make sense?
But you said there are so many levels of shamatha meditation also.
Did I?
Yeah, well...
when we are Trisamling, when I was explaining that there are many... Yes, so that is something very different, right? So if we have shamatha means calm abiding. Calm abiding means that we have a mind which is not from the desire realm anymore. It's a mind from the form realm. Right? The form realm, we can develop our single-pointed concentration by making the mind more subtle, more subtle, more subtle. Right? So there are 4 concentrations. Each of them is more subtle than the previous one. And after that, we can enter into the formless realm, which again, more subtle. And we have 4 levels there as well. And they go up to the peak of existence. Right? So the Bodhisattva trains their mind in going up and down through all these levels of concentration in order to make the mind more flexible. But also, on all these levels of concentration, there are many sentient beings. And so as a Bodhisattva, we need to know where these sentient beings are, how to communicate with them. So we need to be able to go to all the places where sentient beings are. Right? So we need to be able to go to all these concentrations, these levels of concentrations, and these levels in the formless realms. The absorptions, they are called. But we also use them to make the mind more flexible. So then, if I'm going to realize emptiness, they say the best level to realize the best mind that we can use to realize emptiness is the mind of the 4th concentration. It's a very subtle mind, very, very powerful mind. So we first go into that level of shamatha, of concentration, before we, I don't think it's called shamatha, but it is called concentration. So we go into that level, and then we go into the union of calm abiding and special insight. Right? That's the best mind to eliminate the delusions. But the mind of calm abiding itself, right? That mind is already good enough to realize emptiness the first time that you realize it. But then when you familiarize with the realization of emptiness, you want to go to these more subtle minds and use them to realize emptiness. Does it make sense?
Theoretically.
Theoretically. Yes. The union of shamatha and vipassana, yes. The 8 jhanas, yes. We call them the 4 concentrations and the 4 formless absorptions. Same as the 8 jhanas, yes. All right, this was a question that has been hanging in here for a couple of days. So I've answered that, think about it, and we can always go back there. Are we ready to dedicate? So we thought we maybe do some, we made a copy of the prayer for the swift return from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and I'm going to share that with you. And here people need to share that.
Can we make groups of 4 because we only have 4 sets? So maybe
So we have been reading here so far the swift return prayer from Kadrula. But actually, His Holiness the Dalai Lama also wrote a return prayer, and Jada Rinpoche also wrote a swift return prayer. And then there is Lilung Rinpoche who did the same. So what we can do today is we can read all these prayers. Is that what you wanted to do? We're going to read all the prayers for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. This one is from the Dalai Lama. We start with that one. And here in the Gompa, everyone is grouping around the 4 copies of prayers. Maybe we make some more. All right, so we start with the prayer for the swift return from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Okay. Peerless an assembly of the children of the choice ones, Shravakas and Pacheka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the object of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding, spreading the Munis, treasures and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the 3 jewels and the great ways of Bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of the reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. And we go to the prayer of Jada Rinpoche. Patient in bearing the hardships of spreading the teachings of the Muni in general, and the teachings of the victorious Jamyang Tsongkhapa in hundreds of directions. Lord of Dharma, holding the 3 vows and wearing saffron robes, please quickly return as the glory of the peerless teachings. You held the teachings of explanation and practice with great asceticism, unable to bear that transmigratory beings are confused by the darkness of suffering. Through your great loving kindness, you skillfully led them to happiness. Unparalleled Son of the teachings, please return quickly. Beautifying the ornament of supreme patience and increasing the practice of the supreme authentic teachings of the victorious one, through listening, reflection, and meditation. Guide of all transmigratory beings along the perfect path, true and perfect pure Guru, please return quickly. And the prayer of Kadrula. Guru, think of me. Guru, consider me. Most gracious root Guru, care for me. Most gracious root Guru, do not deprive us of your compassionate refuge. Listen and consider this heartfelt prayer made by a tormented disciple. Guru, embodiment of the Buddhas of the 3 times, please bless me. You may rest in all-pervading great bliss, equipoised within the dhatu of unimpeded luminosity. Yet the playful dance of your loving compassion emanates in myriad ways. The time has come for the return of the swift appearance of your magical wisdom, the Rupakaya, and for you to care for us once again with your affectionate compassion. Arise, arise, arise from the Dharmakaya. I invoke you, I call upon you, I implore you on behalf of all beings. Do not rest in Kichara or other pure realms. Rather, to benefit the Buddha's teachings and all living beings, swiftly return to the southern continent to spread the Buddha Dharma of study and realization. Quickly return to guide us pure wretched beings. Such is the desperate cry of us, your disciples. Return so that we may actually behold your presence and receive the blessings of your body, speech, and mind. All errors, mistakes, and broken samayas that we have made in relation to your body, speech, mind, spontaneous activity, through our being confused and conceiving things in erroneous ways, we confess within the luminous emptiness of your 3 kayas. Of everything auspicious, the supreme auspiciousness, may there be the auspiciousness of emptiness and compassion. May there be the auspiciousness of a timely meeting between master and disciples. Through the force of the truth of unchanging suchness, may the unmistaken incarnation return quickly. This lament was made by me, a Dakini, with pure faith and samaya, her eyes filled with tears of sorrow. May these wishes of a beggar woman be fulfilled through the blessings of the deities of the 3 roots. Perceptions its object and the perceiver all dissolve within the expanse, the blissful clarity of suchness. Ah. And then we have one more, and we just read it because it's so beautiful. From Lhundup Rinpoche. The Lamb of the Gaiden teachings, the supreme refuge, Lama Zopa, has departed in order to rouse to the Dharma disciples who cling to permanence. Supreme Being, you took upon yourself the Kadam teacher's way of life and were bound to it night and day, greatly benefiting the teachings and transmigratory beings. Great Master of the teachings, supreme guide for East and West, hidden yogi, Lama Zopa, unrivaled Lama Zopa, you took His Holiness, the Sovereign Lord of the Victorious Ones, as your crown and followed all his instructions. Benefactor Lama Zopa, for the many public and personal needs of Tibetans and others, you opened the vast of resources and cleared away the suffering of hardships. Mind Lama Zopa, you held helpless and voiceless animals with a mind of loving kindness and were their holy savior and protector. Siddha Lama Zopa, Lord of the ocean of mandalas, With the wings of emptiness and compassion, you cross the waters of degeneration and completion stages. Lama Zopa, great hidden yogi, ornament of the activities of the Gaiden teachings, in truth a great son out of victorious ones. Having thought of me and other transmigratory beings of the degenerate age, from your seat of lotus and sun, at the heart of Sangha Yeshe, may the jewel that fulfills all wishes, emanating again with the brilliance of 10,000 suns, smile swiftly and without obstacles, to our eyes filled with tears of faith. And then we can dedicate also for the long and healthy life of all our teachers, especially His Holiness the Dalai Lama, but also all your teachers. And then we can just dedicate with the verse, due to all the past, present and future merit accumulated by myself and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and other sentient beings. May the Bodhicitta that arise in my mind and in the mind of all the members of my family and all other sentient beings, and may the Bodhicitta that has already arisen in our minds only increase more and more. And then we can finish with a dedication that His Holiness likes to do. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Thank you so much for being here. Tomorrow is our last evening in Bodhicitta, and then we'll talk about how to practice Bodhicitta in daily life, and we will do some Tonglen meditation. And if you have any questions, please bring them tomorrow. Okay, and then we'll see. We make it a nice practice evening. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you all for being here.